they go back on that 24 hours later, I mean, I surely that'd be even more damage.
That as well, because there's still Braun, isn't there, as well?
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's written down here that he thinks Braun is going to cash that in, and it's going to make it go all awkward, and that's how Brock's going to retain it. So he's got his own little story plan here. So remember, Jimbo said that if it does happen, so that's why he wants me to say it. So I have done there, Jimbo. So if you're right, credit to you. Can't see it myself, but then again, you never know. With these stuff, so it does make tonight a little bit more exciting. Matt, if Brock is done, because I think even if he hasn't signed the contract, or if he has signed the contract, Matt, there's no doubting that Brock's not going to be around whilst he's training for that big UFC fight with Daniel Cormier. Coming up in what we're thinking is going to be January or early February. So he's not going to be about regardless, Matt. What do they do with Paul Heyman? Do you think they'll do something with him, or do you think they'll leave him off as well?
It does seem like a waste of talent not to have Paul Heyman around, but I think they squandered that chance, like you said on Raw, when they showed that he just bleeds Brock Lesnar through and through, his allegiance lies solely with him. So I don't really see him working with anyone in the meantime, because between now and January, for Brock Lesnar, that'll go pretty quick, and probably for most fans, it sounds like a long time, but really, in the stake of it, if they were to advertise a match now for WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar in it, people would be looking forward to it already.
Yeah, believe it or not, Finn Balor really hopes that Brock Lesnar stays with the WWE in a recent interview that he did. He wants him there, apparently. So it's an interesting viewpoint from an active wrestler like Finn Balor, who, of course, did have the Universal title at the very beginning, of course, of all that. So, what's that, mate?
Attainable for him nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. So, Matt, as a whole show, SummerSlam, are we giving this a thumbs up as far as the whole show, or what's your overall verdict to the show?
Oh, it wasn't great. It was okay. It delivered, but this is why they got to stop doing Takeover the night before, because I'm looking at Takeover, I'm like, this is wrestling, and I'm looking at SummerSlam, and I'm like, this is politics. There's too much thought going into SummerSlam. People that go out on an NXT Takeover go out, put it on the line, showcase their talent, and wow, do they deliver? But I'm looking at SummerSlam, I'm like, what? Where is the malfunction? Where are they getting it right the night before, and why are they getting it wrong the night after? I just can't make the connection there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It was long. But then I'm saying that about every single flipping WWE thing. It's too long. Interestingly enough, Matt, Triple H in an interviews was asked questions about how people that were. Well, one reporter said to him I prefer watching NXT because it's just enough, and with WWE I just get totally bored because on a takeover there's just enough time to really get invested in everything, and the feuds, there's not as many takeovers as there are pay-per-views, and it seems like there's a nice distance. There's only an hour every week, so you don't always get to see all the stars on every week, but it seems to do better with the storylines. But he was totally defensive. He was like, well, I'm sure there's guys that watch the WWE product that don't like the NXT product, and vice versa. And I was thinking, man, where are those fans? Show me one, because I've not met one yet that's said that way round, that's for sure. But for me, TakeOver and NXT in general, I watched that show again. I was blown away. That tag team match to kick it off with, Matt, Moustache Mountain, we saw those guys back in the Royal Albert Hall that night when they got it, and when you see these amazing competitors. And by the way, there was a lot of people that wasn't involved on that night. It was a great night of wrestling, and it was just enough time, just enough time for me. The main event again blew me away. They've stepped it up again. I didn't think they could do it, but they just seem to get better and better every time you see these guys. And I've got to say, I enjoyed enjoyed Takeover a lot more as a show than I did SummerSlam, because the matches they give me on there, the quality is so superior to the WWE product. It's unfortunate, but you'd think that WWE should have every advantage possible, like the main roster guys, than what the NXT people should have in terms of exposure, time, investment. But actually, it's the other way round. And, you know, you can't even say it's star power, because all the stars are on the main roster, if you think about it. All the merch sellers mainly are on the main roster. So I think it's just product, Matt. I just think it's a better product, for me anyway. But, you know, speaking to most people of different walks, you know, they enjoy Takeover and NXT just because it's a lot shorter and it's more to the point. Again, those entrances, Matt, at NXT sort of were a cut above the grade as well, weren't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. They always are, and I wonder if that's the Triple H effect to that.
Yeah, it's got to be.
But you know, I just feel like it appeals to almost like a more adult audience, because they're the ones paying for the network, and I think Triple H has his head really screwed on for that kind of audience. He knows what it is to deliver good wrestling, and to be fair, he's a good scout as well. He looks at other promotions and sees what they're doing right, and you know, just looking at so many interviews of that guy, and you know, non-stop wrestling is his life. You know, he lives and breathes wrestling, and you know, he knows the business inside and out. So if there's anyone that's going to actually know how to deliver a pay-per-view, it's going to be that guy. So I think, you know, to say like Triple H did well is good, but to say Vince McMahon did well, because we all know what he believes in wrestling. He has a son-in-law, which, you know, has got to be, you know, the best that he could hope for, because he's definitely invested in wrestling just as much as he is.
Smile. I want to see smile. Imagine. Yeah, well, yeah, for me, the total weekend, the Gargano match, you know, and Tommaso Ciampa, that was the match of the weekend for me. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I will agree that. And I'll say that even the ending, like, you could see it coming a mile off, couldn't you? The way that they were positioned on that ramp, it wasn't going to be the way. I think they did well, though, because they didn't have a lot of time to kind of come up with a new idea. Since Aleister Black came out with an injury, so of course that needed a complete rewrite. So, you know, they did well with what they had at the time, and to be fair, you know, Ciampa has come out of this like great, because he's looking at like he's probably the most hated heel in the company right now, which is a great achievement to have in itself. And you know, he looks like he's got a lot of longevity in the guy, and they've not really had a champion quite like him in NXT before. So it is a whole new direction, and it feels like the NXT as a whole has a breath of fresh air. Like the whole thing is thriving again. It feels like we haven't had this for a while now. And even when we look at people like the Dream, I loved his sort of trousers that like "Call me up." I was like, well, you're saying that, but do you really want that?
Yeah, I don't think he does.
He could be the next Tyler Breeze.
I really don't think he does, to be quite honest with you. But the only interesting thing Triple H did say in that interview, Matt, is he said he sees there being more opportunity where guys can go on to NXT like they do both Raw and SmackDown. So he thinks there may be more opportunity. Yeah, you know, I'd even say Kevin Owens could do with that at the minute. The way
I've
he's
seen
gone.
how it worked so well in the past, because they had Cesaro going up there when he was on the main roster, and his matches with Sami Zayn at that time were probably the best that they had on NXT at that point in time. Yeah, so definitely worth doing. So yeah, that almost brings us to the end. Of course, Matt, we're going to be at WWE soon. We're going to be they're coming over to the O2 show. 8 days away, Matt. Believe it or not. We got. That's come around really fast, that has.
It has.
We're not the type of people to miss a show, you know. We're going to be there covering it.
Yeah, we will be there at the O2 Arena. And I've got a little bit of a couple of matches that have been announced there, Matt, as well, which also might give people an insight as to where things are going in the future as well. So, of course, lineup still scheduled to change, but there are a few new additions to it, Matt, which you might be interested in. So there's going to be a WWE Cruiserweight match. I think you saw that one anyway, didn't you, Matt? Cedric Alexander and Drew Gulak will be in the rematch. Your favourites, Matt, Titus Worldwide against the Revival.
That's a 50-50 because they're both booked as bad as each other.
Ember Moon, Natalya, and Nia Jax against the Riot Squad.
Interesting.
Yeah. Our favourite Bobby Lashley, Mr. Smiles himself, up against Elias. Another match round for Finn Balor and our favourite gimmick Constable Baron Corbin.
Oh, they're not finished with that yet. Wow.
And just as we thought, Matt, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose up against Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, which might not be too bad for us on the night. But added recently, Matt, Ronda Rousey, the Raw's Women's Championship up against Alexa Bliss. So they're going to be doing a rematch there, Matt, for that one, for Ronda. And also it's got here, double main event just announced. None other than Roman Reigns, Matt, our favourite, especially this podcast, up against Braun Strowman.
I don't know, because that will give us a preview of probably where they're heading with that, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. So it's not the worst. It's not the worst decision. I mean, could have been worse in the kind of like Roman's involved as a Shield 3-on-3 or something like. You know, that would have been a sort of a worse effect. So I'm kind of happy it's a one-on-one match, and they are booking it as a double main event. So it should be a pretty good night. Of course, all the talk is about Ronda Rousey appearing in the UK. And by the way, I mean, that's got some traction as well, because that's what they were talking about on Sky Sports this morning, Matt, on the news, is like, you know, now Ronda gets to come over in the UK like less than 2 weeks away. She's going to be defending it. So they're going to obviously be having a lot of coverage and exposure there on her coming here. So it does serve a purpose, her being there. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Also, there are other superstars announced to be there as well. Of course, Bayley, Sasha Banks, Matt, Bray Wyatt, Bobby Roode, Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas, and of course the modern day Maharaj, Jinder Mahal. Can't miss him. Especially after his big pop last time in London, Matt at the O2, he was well over against Roman. We felt sorry for him. Yeah, we felt sorry for the guy. You know, he got attacked backstage, if you remember. He wanted to go out there as an injured fighting champion. It's quite an interesting night, that. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, interesting to see what happens further going ahead. Haven't heard any new news anyway about the whole Brock Lesnar contract situation. I'm sure that is going to develop. Daniel Cormier made a few mentions about last night, and he thinks that Brock will sign with both. And by the way, what was being reported at one point, Matt, was that Vince was so adamant about keeping Brock that he said he would match whatever UFC were going to pay him for that fight with Daniel Cormier, he'd match it. So I'm not really sure why he'd want to stop that match from happening when it's like it would only do WWE sort of greater than anything else. So I don't know why he would be so bothered about that. But apparently there was some of the rumours coming out there, and God knows how much that would cost. So, but then maybe that's some of the Saudi Arabia money coming in, Matt. maybe the check's just cleared, and he thinks he can muscle in. Who knows? But yeah, will be interesting to see what happens tonight on Raw. I'm sure there'll be a few twists and turns there, and could set us up nicely for the week after, Matt, when we see them in person. There may be a few more changes. You never know, Matt. Point, so.
Like you say about Brock Lesnar's contract, but I'm sure a lot of people are wondering also about Daniel Bryan's. I mean, I've heard nothing about that, and I'm assuming that Miz win is not a good sign for him.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, he's saying it's his lawyer stalling it up, but also there has been mention that WWE can exercise a clause in his contract to say they can keep him for a year, which I don't know how well that would work. And I'm sure WWE want to keep Daniel Bryan. You know, they don't want to see him just go off and then turn up at Madison Square Garden next year and have that on their hands. So they will definitely be trying to get that. I think from what I understand, Matt, it's more a thing about if something else happens to Daniel Bryan and the doctor says no again, he doesn't want to just be stuck in a rut where he can't get out of his WWE contract and just go and wrestle somewhere else.
I assume they're going to work for the best deal for both parties up until the final hour because, like they said, Daniel Bryan felt trapped. He felt trapped with WWE.
Yeah.